Alright, time to get back to video making.
Is 2015 over already? Wow, time sure does fly. I may not have played very many games that came out in 2015, but I sure as heck have played several games for the first time this year. And this video is about the 15 highlights of them. So yeah, as well as including games from previous years, I'm also going to include the one per franchise rule to give every franchise I played this year a fair chance. Also, this list was tough to make since I've played so many good games this year. And it pained me to leave some of these candidates off. But I'm keeping it at a top 15 with some honorable mentions to go along. Alright, time to close out this year on a high note. Number 50. Even though I said I didn't play a whole lot of games that came out in 2015, there were a few that I did. This is one of them. Let me just say this. I had a hard time getting into the Monster Hunter series. My first game within the series, which is number 15 on this list, was a bit of fun when I first got it, but I've just found myself absolutely sucking, and several monsters, including the Great Jaggy, kept on owning me. But quite after a while, I got over that learning curve, and this game quickly became one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had on the 3DS. The learning curve may be difficult to get through, but a great reward lies at the end of it in the form of new environments, new upgrades, and most of all, new monsters to bring down. Each upgrade brings something new to the table to provide you with new ways in progressing through the game. You can customize yourself however you'd like in providing your defenses, and you can give yourself a weapon out of several choices to make your offenses different, whether it be the fast-striking dual blades, the far-range projectile weapons, or a sword and shield which can become an axe. So with all these in mind, there are several ways you can approach each boss monster. Speaking of which, let's get into the most important thing about this game, the monsters. I gotta say, they did an impressive job with this roster. Each one brings new experiences to give you something to remember, like an amazing design, a great battle, or just an overall cool factor. And for every bad monster in the game there was always one or more good monsters, so the good easily outweighs the bad. And what's better than taking down amazing monsters? Taking down amazing monsters with a buddy! Yes, there is multiplayer in this game, and it's executed brilliantly. There's little to no lag, and it encourages each hunter to work well as a team. Believe me, it's a blast going on these quests with buddies. While Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate isn't the easiest thing to get into, neither is the entire Monster Hunter series, it is still a rewarding experience that should definitely be in the library of all 3DS owners. Now I'm hoping everything this game did right gets expanded upon in Monster Hunter Cross. Hey Capcom, you gonna localize Monster Hunter Cross? Number 14. There are times where I just get in the mood to play something completely over the top. The No More Heroes games are a good example of what I play when in this mood. Not only can the stories in both games be entertaining, but the gameplay is just an absolute great time. Though as much as I like both games, I was honestly won over more by No More Heroes 2. While No More Heroes 1 was a blast from beginning to end, No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle took everything I liked about it and expanded upon it. The combat system in Desperate Struggle was a step up from the first game in my opinion. It felt like it had a lot more variety and allowed for some more fun action and more fun combos. Seriously, when you get the hang of your enemies and you know what you're doing, it can be an amazing time just mowing down hordes of foes on your own, especially in Ecstasy mode where you basically become an unstoppable demon. Also, I gotta give credit for the bonus attacks at the end of combos. They really are fun to pull off, just like in the original. Some may disagree when I say this, but I do like that there is more plot emphasis than the first, and how it gives characters more development, especially its main character Travis. This story had me enjoying its fun moments and getting into its more serious moments. I know some people may find the more serious tone to be a bit of a turnoff, but I don't mind it. The boss battles are easily the highlight for me. While there are a few that are just meh and a few that will make the angry video game nerd explode in anger, there are always the ones that are just a fantastic time. So in the end, while this struggle may have some issues like Shinobu's segment of the game and the absolutely abhorrent final boss and empty ending, this is still an incredible hack and slash that I was honestly glad to have played.
And hey, if you think the Wii's just a system for babies, you clearly don't know some of the games it houses.
Number 13. During Christmas, I received a lot of new games that I ended up having a great time with. And it was also during this time where I got into the Tales series. I played both Tales of Symphonia and Tales of the Abyss during this time, and both games impressed me for various reasons. Though honestly, Abyss impressed me more. Much like every other Tales game, Abyss is an action RPG where you play as one unit out of a possible 6 and have 3 more units back you up in battle with either offensive or defensive capabilities. And this system works how you want it to. It provides you with many ways of dealing with enemy threats and challenges you to think your way through battles. Also, the units themselves are really fun to play as, not to mention incredibly well written characters. Each one brings some new personality and gameplay style to make your team more diverse in combat and more interesting in character development. While on the topic of characters, there's something else I need to mention: the story. And honestly, it was incredibly well executed in my opinion. It starts off pretty basic, but soon becomes incredibly dark and complex, yet it never goes overboard and tries too hard to the point where it's painful to sit through. What makes it this way is that plot twists happen constantly throughout, and the tone is constantly changing to prevent itself from feeling stale. This story was honestly one reason why I continued playing the game, because I wanted to know where it was going to go. Now while this game is awesome, I do have one major gripe with it. The boss selection was very lackluster. Some of the bosses were fun, but then there are those bosses that are either pathetically easy or completely cheap, and the difficulty is not consistent with them either. But aside from that, this is a great RPG, and if you want to get into the Tales series, I highly recommend this game. It is definitely worth it, whether you get it on the PS2 or the 3DS. I realize I haven't made a whole lot of attempts at humor in this, so here's a picture of a Pokemon learning a new move. I couldn't resist. Number 12. Kingdom Hearts is a series I loved from the first second I started playing it, and the game I put on this list helped accentuate my love for it. With that, we come to what many consider to be one of the franchise's best games, Birth by Sleep Final Mix. Serving as a prequel to the entire Kingdom Hearts series, this game set up a lot of what the series followed with in terms of plot. And in terms of being a prequel, Birth by Sleep does its job very well. It focuses on how the plans of the true villain behind everything wrong in the series came to be, and how multiple heroes did what they could to hold him off. And that focus led to a lot of interesting elements that made this story interesting to me. The main characters of this game, Terra, Ventus, and Aqua, are not really any sort of plot devices. They each have interesting personalities and go under a lot of development in the story, and their development is great as well, like Ventus trying to figure out what he's truly meant for, and Terra just resisting a turn to the darkness. Not only are the three heroes great as characters, but they are also awesome in gameplay. Instead of being carbon copies of one another, they bring different attributes to their gameplay style, like Ventus being quicker, Terra being bulkier and having stronger physical attacks, and Aqua being more magic oriented. And their attributes translate well into the combat, which is a darn good combat system, might I say. It gives you several things to work with, like a command deck, command styles, and even shot locks to dish out pain to your opponents. It's incredibly easy to figure out, and when you get the hang of it, the game becomes incredibly fun. There's a lot more in this game I could talk about, like the interesting worlds or that lovely soundtrack, but that would go on too long, so in short I'll say this. While this isn't my favorite Kingdom Hearts game, that would be Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, I will say that Birth by Sleep Final Mix is easily one of the best games that this franchise has to offer.
Now, I would take this time to say hurry up Kingdom Hearts 3, but pretty much everyone else has already done so, and I don't want to be redundant.
Number 11. You can dig it, can't you? Yes, I am late to the Shovel Knight bandwagon. But honestly, I don't care, because this game was a great time. Despite being a throwback to games in the 80s like Mega Man and Castlevania, Shovel Knight doesn't resort to insanely archaic presentation. In fact, this game looks and sounds awesome! Each sprite is incredibly well animated and shows the liveliness that this game has. And the soundtrack is one that I ended up becoming addicted to. Seriously, go listen to this soundtrack. It's that good. But that's enough with the presentation. This is a 2D platformer, so let's get into the gameplay, which is well crafted for the experience Shovel Knight is trying to be. Shovel Knight controls incredibly well, and each level tests you in a variety of ways that doesn't feel cheap. And even if that's the case, this game will still be a challenge. Not as much as games like Castlevania 3, but this game will test you in many areas. This game may be tricky for your first playthrough, but it becomes easier when you decide to go back and play it multiple times. And you're going to want to do that, since sometime in 2015, there was a DLC campaign released for another character in the game, Plague Knight. And let's just say, it's not exactly a one-to-one Shovel Knight campaign copy, as Plague Knight's abilities are far more different than Shovel Knight's. With all those in mind, the replay value for this game is insanely high, with trying to beat levels however you want, or sidetracking to find hidden goodies. You know, for both an indie game and a company's first game, this is impressive! While I wouldn't go as far as to say this game is a masterpiece, Shovel Knight was still a fantastic adventure from beginning to end. So if you haven't played it, dig in, it will not disappoint you. Since I got my PS3 in Christmas of 2014, I decided to venture out to various stores and expand my collection of games for that system. And I found that the PS3 had loads of gems that I should have played sooner. And this entry is about one such of these gems. This one is what many consider to be the best game on the PS3, and maybe the greatest game that Naughty Dog has made. Ladies and gentlemen, The Last of Us.
What? Daniel?
Hello, Jack.
Daniel, I'm in the middle of a countdown. Now's not a very good time.
You're talking about The Last of Us, aren't you, Jack?
Yeah?
You do realize that's my favorite game of all time, right?
What about that?
Plain and simple. I'd like to talk about my favorite game of all time with you.
Sure, why not? It's always fun to collab in countdowns, even if it's just for one segment.
With all that out, Naughty Dog is a company loved by many for their high-quality titles they create, and The Last of Us is true proof of their quality.
After working on the first 3 Uncharted games, which had a large emphasis on exploring, Naughty Dog took a different approach on realistic-styled games by creating one where you had to manage yourself through a ruined future to avoid being consumed by whatever is out to hunt you. Sounds mindless, but this is more different and unique, thankfully.
For starters, the game doesn't exactly force you to start any sort of massacre. It forces you to equip yourself with whatever you can find to protect yourself, all the while getting to a specific destination out of enemy territory. And in terms of that, The Last of Us does not screw up.
No. Instead, it gives you many weapons to work with, and lets you use them to get through enemies, though you do have a limit on how much of one thing you should use. Even melee weapons, which can be upgrades when you find the necessary materials.
That's another great thing about this game. If you look around in rooms off the path, you can find materials which can lead to useful upgrades to your weapons and tools, and you can find collectibles that expand upon the world of this game, and give you other people's perspective of what happened in this world. But the one thing people praise the most about this game is, say it with me people, the story!
Dear God, the gameplay alone is great, but the story was the biggest reason I continued to play the game, and specifically why the game is so amazing. It could have been mindless, but instead, it chose to go into a more mature direction and actually tell a story that would make great movie material.
The story focuses on 2 characters, Joel and Ellie, and it shows how they got through a huge crisis of people getting a fungal disease and turning into zombies of sorts. Instead of stopping a race of these zombie-like things, The Last of Us is more of an adventure that spans across many different environments. And the 2 actually develop as characters, which makes the plot a lot deeper and more fun to experience.
Also, for all this material, the story never gets convoluted. Great job, Naughty Dog!
So in the end, while I don't think The Last of Us is the king of the PS3, I perfectly see why people, including Daniel, adore it so much, because it is one game that deserves all the attention it gets.
And with amazing story and great gameplay, The Last of Us is, since 2014, still my favorite game of all time. Hey, thanks for letting me be in the video. I've wanted to explain that all for quite a while.
It's been nice having you here, Daniel. I'll continue on the list from here.
Gotcha.
Alright, number 9, go!
Number 9. I'm probably gonna get some weird looks for this one. Yeah, Undertale's not in the top 5. As much as I truly enjoyed this game, I just liked the top 8 more. That being said, I will agree that Undertale is fantastic, which is surprising because I thought this game was just going to be good, but nothing outstanding when I first saw it. Oh boy, was I surprised. The first reason as to why I love this game is the combat. Enemy attacks come in the form of bullet hell minigames, and each and every enemy in the game has different types of these. So each and every battle is made a lot less repetitive and more fun and diverse, not to mention really creative. Also, I love how you can either choose to take the enemy down or spare them, which brings me to the next reason as to why I love this game. There are 3 different storylines in this game, and you'll get one on a playthrough depending on what you did with the enemies over the course of the game, either killing or sparing them. If you were in the middle of the road doing anything you wish, you'd be on the neutral route. But if you went through the game without killing a single enemy, then you'd be a true pacifist. But if you basically killed everything in sight, you'd be on the genocide route, which is basically a bad time according to Sans here. With these, you should ask yourself, should you leave everything untouched and try to get home, or take down anything in your path? The game leaves that up to you, and I honestly admire that decision. Also, the very world you travel in is so filled with life, and you can tell a lot of effort was put into it. I mean, when your world is filled with a caring goat mama, a lazy skeleton that's a really good jokester, another skeleton who has a thing for pasta, and a robot that's also a TV show host, then you can tell that this is no ordinary world. And this world throws all kinds of new things in your direction without feeling unwelcome. And it is awesome! Honestly, this is one game that has so much charm and creativity to it that I actually felt strong emotions inside myself while playing it. I felt like what I was doing in the game was going to affect how future events in the story were going to play out. And I love it when games do that. It made me feel more immersed into the game, which made my experience overall better. It's really no wonder why the internet fell in love with this game. It does so much right and impressed people far and wide, including myself. I honestly thought this game was just going to be good, but Undertale surpassed my expectations. And the thing is, we're only at number 9. Number 8. Oh, here's another franchise I got into last year, Sly Cooper. I was interested in this series due to some of my internet friends giving it positive attention, and when I first played each Sly game, I was hooked on them. They provided loads of fun and entertainment through their stories and gameplay, but one of them stands out to me the most, and that would be the gem that is Thieves in Time. To me, this game honestly took whatever the original Sly trilogy did right, and expanded upon it to bring an experience greater than what the originals could do. While Thieves in Time keeps its story simpler than Sly 2 and 3, it manages to make itself fun to go along with. It provides a smooth experience without ever slowing down, which makes it have phenomenal pacing, which is a much needed improvement from the original games. Another thing I liked more here than the original 3 games is the hub worlds. The hub worlds feel a lot more diverse and more fun to go through, as their designs get very imaginative and creative throughout the whole game. It also helps that each hub world has more things to do than just missions. You can explore around however you please and seek out rewards if you look hard enough. To add on to this game's imagination, Sly can also gain costumes that give him a unique ability when he puts them on, such as the samurai armor, which is immune to fire, the archer outfit, which allows Sly to shoot arrows, and the Arabian thief costume, which lets Sly slow down time.
Okay, seriously, how did the Cooperland become chronokinetics?
The world may never know.
One thing each Sly game brings to the table is a handful of great villains, and Thieves in Time continues this tradition by having what's personally my favorite roster of villains in the whole series. Each one packs in a fun personality, and they don't feel bland in the slightest. On top of that, they have extremely well-designed boss fights, which have you go through sequences of using various skills in order to avoid attacks and find an opening to attack yourself. Every one of these boss fights is enjoyable, minus the extremely dumbed down and anticlimactic final boss, which, yeah, it and the ending made me feel really empty, and are easily the biggest problems with the game. But there is honestly so much good in this game that I can get over what it does wrong. Thieves in Time is easily one of the most fun experiences I've ever had with the PS3 game, and it made me happy that I played the Sly series to begin with. Now I'm just hoping the Sly movie does not disappoint me. Number 7. Back in 2013, I played Shantae Risky's Revenge for the first time, and while it wasn't enough for me to put it on my old Games of 2013 list, I was still very impressed with it. The environments were fun to travel in, the story was quirky and enjoyable, and the game itself felt fun to go through. But whatever Risky's Revenge did right, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse did even better. Since Shantae's genie powers are gone in this game, you'd probably think that she would be worthless. Well, no. Shantae still remains as mobile as she was in previous installments, and she can still use her hair as a whip and various sub-weapons to help her. However, those are only a fraction of what Shantae is capable of in this game. As Shantae goes along, she'll gain various pirate equipment and use it to traverse through many different places and levels, such as a pistol, which is a long-range albeit weak attack, a scimitar, which I'm convinced was made by the guys who made Scrooge's cane, a cannon, which is basically a quadruple jump, and my personal favorite, Risky's Boost, which allows Shantae to act like Sonic the Hedgehog. Gotta go fast! Gotta go fast! Even though I like the genie powers, I like the pirate gear more because they're more fun to use and lead to the possibility of more creative levels. The developers definitely knew this and created some of the best level design I've ever seen in a 2D platformer. Every one of them is so creative in design and really makes use of every piece of equipment you find. And with addictive gameplay comes some amazing boss battles, which put your platforming skills to the test, and also use pirate equipment you gained in the particular dungeon you fight the boss in. As well as upgrading level design, size, atmosphere, and versatility, the story also got upgraded. It's still quirky and enjoyable, but it felt a lot more action-packed and interesting than the previous games, especially since Shantae and Risky spend a majority of the game as a team, which is something they'd never do in previous installments. Pack in some amazing sprite work, an absolutely stunning soundtrack, and some really funny and charming dialogue, and this is one Metroidvania platformer that should not be passed up. Half Genie Hero, you've got some big shoes to fill. Do not disappoint me. Number 6. Alex the Autarch is going to love seeing this one on here. You know, for a game initially released in 2002, Metroid Prime doesn't feel outdated in any way. It actually feels like a game that was released near today. And in the graphical detail, you can tell. This game is honestly one of the most beautiful I have ever seen, especially in the 2009 Wii re-release, which was the version I played. And this beautiful scenery is a part of my favorite part about this game, the world you travel in. This world, known as Talon 4, is a world that offers much to do and see. The world gives you a choice between finding pathways to complete your mission, or wandering around to learn interesting facts about the planet itself, both of which make the planet feel even more alive and fun to travel through. Normally I'm not very fond of being in a first-person's perspective, because I always feel things are kinda clunky rather than immersive for me. Metroid Prime is a huge exception to this. The first-person perspective doesn't feel clunky in the slightest, and I actually felt immersed into the world that the game creates, which is something I'm glad this game accomplished, because it's meant to focus more on exploration rather than gun combat, though gun combat is still there. The gun combat is really fun too. The lock-on mechanics allow for easy targeting, the scan visor is helpful in many instances, and every enemy requires a different strategy to defeat, which makes the gameplay far less repetitive. In fact, with your amazing arsenal, there are many ways you can defeat enemies, like baiting their weak spots or using various weapons to skewer them quickly, which is something that is very fun and rewarding. With all these factors, the ways of reaching your goal and the final boss are numerous and provide a lot of replay value, which I wholeheartedly adore. So if you're interested in Metroid, the Prime Trilogy is available off the Wii U Virtual Console for only $20. And before I close the segment out, While I do not think that Federation Force is going to be as good as the Prime trilogy, I still think it'll turn out to be alright, but we'll just have to wait and see. Also, the petition for canceling it is more retarded than the recent attempts at trademarking. Keck. Number 5.
Yet again, we got another franchise I got into for the first time this year. It's a lot, I know.
Took me this long, but I finally got into the Kirby series. And it is awesome! I was pleasantly surprised at how much fun this series provided me. The 2 games I played, Triple Deluxe and number 5 on this list, are some of the most fun I've had in a 2D platformer. So what Kirby game is on here? Well, this choice should not be a surprise. Oh my goodness! To think that a little pink beach ball could provide such a blissful experience like Return to Dreamland is absolutely astounding. Honestly, there is so much amazement in this single game that it's honestly hard to explain in full detail. Well, might as well start with the thing that matters the most in 2D platformers, the level design. The level design in this game is genius. Each world you go to feels so new, so lush, and so much fun that it's honestly hard not to admire the very effort that went into them. Despite a linear style, each level brings plenty of surprises and hidden goodies to give you a reason to replay them. And need I mention the fun that is Return to Dreamland's co-op? Okay, I do need to mention that, but seriously, the co-op in this game is even more of a blast than playing solo.
After all,
nothing says teamwork like senselessly beating up a tree with friends.
And I should probably mention something that is important to Kirby, the copy abilities. And, oh lord, they went all out with this ability lineup. All of the abilities are a blast to use and provide many ways of beating the levels and bosses. And super abilities? Simply put, they are insane. And with fun levels and abilities, come fun boss battles. These boss battles aren't the greatest in the world, but they definitely feel fun, and in a 2D platformer, I wouldn't have it any other way. Add on fun minigames, an extra mode that's actually a good challenge, and loads of replay value, and you have a game that no fan of 2D platformers should miss out on. Also, thanks for releasing the game on the Wii U eShop, Nintendo. You just saved me a long hunt. Number 4. I've talked about a fair share of fantastic games so far, but the next 4 have proven to be more worthy spots than all the others. These are games that have earned all my adoration, even if they might have a couple problems. Oh yeah, now we're getting to some of my all-time favorite games. With that, at number 4, we have Freedom Planet. Because I'm a huge fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog series, I knew I was gonna love Freedom Planet the instant I saw it. Eventually, I got it on Wii U, and I had some of the most fun I've had with a video game. The level design is absolutely incredible, making use of each playable character's skills in very creative ways. There is not a single level in this game that I don't enjoy playing. Each one is simply amazing, with Fortune Knight, Sky Battalion, Pangu Lagoon, and Final Dreadnought being my personal favorites. And speaking of each playable character, let's get into that. There are 3 playable characters: Lilac, who has an amazing boost and double jump, Carol, who has an awesome wall jump and a physics-defying motorcycle, and Mila, who has fun shield abilities and a great flare jump. The cool thing is, each level is built with their abilities in mind, and sometimes there can be a stage exclusive to a certain character, which gives more reasons to play as each one. While I'm a bit split on the story, mostly due to its inconsistent tone and pacing, I still like what it was going for, and there are some fun moments to be had. Also, I have to say, the voice actors did an excellent job with their performances. They actually sound great to listen to and not forced or cheesy in the slightest. And there's one more thing I want to talk about. The amazing boss battles! I don't know who came up with these bosses, but give them medals. These bosses are just wonderful. They test you, while at the same time providing insane thrills and an overall fun experience. In fact, that's the phrase that most properly describes Freedom Planet. A fun experience. The levels never get dull, nothing gets too annoying, and it's worth playing over and over and over and over again just to experience these thrills as many times as you want. Great job on this game, Galaxy Trial. You sure have impressed me.
now what would be really cool is if Galaxy Trial made a sequel to this game, and Well then.
Number 3. After 2 years, I finally got back into the Ratchet & Clank series by purchasing some of its installments on the PS3. And they proved that the charm and gameplay I fell in love with in Up Your Arsenal kept on going to deliver incredible experiences. And this leads to number 3 on this list, my favorite Ratchet & Clank game, and my all-time favorite PS3 game as of right now, Ratchet & Clank Future. A crack in time. Oh my lord, where do I even begin with this one? There's too many good things in this game to even talk about. The story may start off pretty simple, but it gets really complex later on because it picks up plot points left behind by previous installments, like both Ratchet's and Clank's past and what happened to the Lombaxes. It could have been convoluted, especially since time travel is involved, but it isn't. It manages to be well thought out and understandable, and for a time travel plot, that's really admirable. So, A Crack in Time nails its story, but what about its gameplay? Well, it nails that too. The developers understood what people want in a Ratchet & Clank game, and they delivered fun, action-packed gameplay that will please both newcomers and veterans of the series alike. Sure, the game may be on the easy side, but I was having too much fun to even care about the difficulty. And since this is a Ratchet & Clank game, I gotta bring up the weapon roster. And it is an amazing roster. There are a few weapons I don't really care for, but almost every other weapon is fun to use and useful in many ways. Some of these weapons can be pretty self-explanatory, but then there are others that are just full of creativity and show that a lot of thought was put into them. The space battles are another highlight of the game for me. In the past, space segments were usually on rails, and you just had to shoot whatever you could, kind of like Star Fox. But now you're given full 3D movement, and you can adjust your speed and shoot blasters and missiles like a madman. The controls feel just right and not clunky in the slightest, and the space combat is always so much fun. And on top of all these, there's so much more, like beautiful graphics, a great soundtrack, incredibly humorous dialogue. Oh, and did I mention that this game gets boss battles right when other games in the series were hit or miss with those? Yeah, this game houses a lot of amazing aspects that make it worth playing, and the fact that you can get it nowadays for just $10 is really convincing. So if you want to become a Ratchet & Clank fan, I highly recommend this one. It's my favorite PS3 game for a reason. Now let's hope the Ratchet & Clank movie is good. Number 2. Not getting into Steam gaming sooner was a huge mistake. I got many games on Steam in 2015, and I was astonished at what it had to offer. But no matter what games I loved on Steam, none of them can compete with what I consider to be the king of indie games and the king of Steam, which is Dust and Elysian Tale. If you watch me, you might have heard about this game somewhere, but if you haven't, then what have you been doing this past time? Because this game is truly an absolute marvel, and for good reason. With a really cartoony art style and having animal characters, you'd think the story would be very cheesy and cheery. Well, that's not the case. The story is actually pretty dark and very thought-provoking, especially when dealing with themes like racism, revenge, genocide, and finding a place in the world. And these portrayals are spot on. They never get rambunctiously shoved in your face, and they address themselves rather formally, like they should be. Story's one thing, but the presentation overall helps the game a lot. The game looks absolutely gorgeous with colorful backgrounds and models, fluid animations, and much more. And the soundtrack? Pure ear candy. Good job on the soundtrack, Hyperdux Soundworks. But what makes Dust a favorite of mine is its gameplay. The combat is beyond fun, giving you loads to work with and rewarding you for going out of your way to perform longer combos. The level design is also fantastic. This game is part Metroidvania, which makes every level have secret paths that lead to hidden goodies. And it is so much fun going out of the way to find new areas and being rewarded. In fact, if you can find or pull off something amazing, the game graciously rewards you, and that's the main reason as to why I love this game so much. Honestly, this game alone made me regret not getting into Steam earlier. I was missing out on so much, but I'm honestly glad I got to play this game and witness what a masterpiece it is. Dean Dodrill, great job. Now before we get to number 1, there are several games I want to give an honorable mention to. Even though I had a hard time determining the order of this list, I knew what number 1 was going to be. A game so amazing, so epic, and so much fun to play through, that it is truly a work of art. Yes, I know this is a predictable choice. I know that people have praised this game many times already. But you know what? I don't care. Because Xenoblade Chronicles is the choice for the number 1 spot. But what's so good about it that's making me burst into absolute joy right now? Well, I'll just tell you. The story does start off pretty simple, but plot twists and new points change its tone constantly. But it's not done in a way that feels convoluted or sloppily put together. It feels very natural, and you're given a lot of time to think over what's going on, and find answers laying somewhere down the road. And I love it when stories do that. It keeps me constantly engaged, and it makes me want to play the game more. And do you know what else makes me want to play the game more? Amazing locations to explore! Each overworld in this game is not only fun to travel through, but large as heck! And each one provides something new to do. They each have their own brand of enemies to take on, several side quests to do, items to collect, and so much more. With all these, the game never gets boring, and neither does the combat. With your selection of arts, with all their ups and downs, you're given a lot of strategy on how to approach each and every enemy and boss. It's not a button masher, nor does it require spamming one move over and over. It requires a lot more strategy than just that, especially considering what you can do and what your enemy can do. Speaking of units, all 7 of them are portrayed fantastically. They're full of character and overall lovable, whether it be Shulk's kind-heartedness, Dunban's will to carve his own future, or Ricky being, Ricky. All of them are fun as characters and useful in some way in playstyle. Graphically speaking, while the game doesn't look absolutely groundbreaking, the environments have a lot of attention to detail and look great for the system. And the soundtrack. Oh my goodness, the soundtrack! If I could choose a favorite soundtrack from any video game, this soundtrack would be my vote. All the music is beautifully composed and is used to perfectly fit the situations they're used in. Honestly, I fell in love with this game so much that the few problems it has are pretty negligible to me. The game constantly had me engaged in its plot, addicted in its combat, and immersed into its world from beginning to end. And all of these reasons are why Xenoblade Chronicles has earned number 1 on this list.
I'm the Lightning Ripper, and thanks for watching, everybody. Let's have a great 2016!
Tell me why, the reason show the way. Talk despair, still I seek for you. All I long to see was your smile. I know